Be simply me, no matter what, nothing else matters. The podcast for personal inspiration, being you again and way much more. Simply you, no matter what, nothing else matters.
Hello everyone to a special edition, and Max is joining us, and we're talking today about the female future, female entrepreneurship, and our gifts of the feminine and how we can use it actually also in business. Hello.
Yay! I am so glad to be having this conversation. It's one of my favorite topics.
Me too. I'm accompanying nurturing women mompreneurs for more than 20 years.
Mm,
And there are so many women out there who talk about the glass ceiling, not going to the highest job possible, and I'm like, where is it? I never had that. I don't have no idea what they're talking about.
I think that no, I think I know what they're talking about in the sense that I've experienced as well where in job situations, especially where you're I don't know, maybe it's because I always had these sort of support roles, right? So I was always the project administrator or the secretary, and there's I've definitely worked for managers who make certain assumptions based on job role and gender, for sure. Which also sometimes I really enjoyed messing them about with because, well, stereotypes are a dangerous game to play with, aren't they?
They are, but sometimes also fun to play. But
Exactly.
there is one thing what I'm asking me for years. We had the first feminine movement for, I think, 40, 50, 60 years. What
Hmm.
happened? I know we're in different countries, and maybe in some countries they never heard about things like this. But I'm asking or wondering me so many times what
Well,
happened in between.
I think one of the things that I see
I can't hear you, Max. You're probably
I,
totally
no,
brilliant words, and we can't hear you. No, come on,
I
say it.
accidentally hit the mute button. um, no, I think that one of the things that happen, and I hear people talk about this sometimes, is when when women decided to be or decided, but when women started becoming more involved in business and in the workforce and those kind of things, what we ended up doing in order to be part of the boys' club was to play to the masculine strength. And I think that when we do that, there's definitely a point where we feel like we can't go any further because we're not actually playing to our own strengths. And if you're constantly trying to be in a way that maybe doesn't feel 100% natural to you, then there's only so much of that that you can do in a day. There's only so much that you can stretch yourself towards that. And I think I don't want to say that the patriarchy has played out super good for men because um, I think men also struggle from this over masculine energy stuff where they are not allowed to have emotions and mental health issues and you know um but but I think that it's when you look at how women are defined in our societies, it's often the definition is often in relation to other what relationship they have to other people, right? So they're either wives or they are mothers or they are partners, or but there's so much of that definition is in the relational realm, whereas men are much more likely to be defined first by what job or what profession they do. And it's much less likely that a man will be asked if he's married than if a woman will be asked if she's married. Does that make any sense?
Yes, so we're still forcing stereotype thinking and wordings, even when we believe that we are way much further in the feminism, in the movement, than we thought.
Well, I think that a lot of it as well happens at a level that we're not fully aware of. I think we see this in so many, social movements where we're like, where we're trying to achieve change, but there's so much stuff, so many habits in our language and in our just our habits and our culture that are so geared towards, you know, supporting one group of people over other groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of us and them thinking is so ingrained in, and not just for women, also for other groups within society. And so we can say like, yeah, I am not actively um, I'm not actively trying to support the patriarchy, but I'm sure that I sometimes do because it's the system I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that I say or do things subconsciously that are awful. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like that actually disadvantage even myself. And I think we all do that. And I think once we can start sort of even just admitting to ourselves that we sometimes think and say things that are not helpful to the cause that we're trying to further. Um, that helps if we can just say that we're not going to be perfect about it, because for generations this has been the system that women and men, that people have lived in. um, and we all sometimes have thoughts about, it's like even the whole idea of women always kind of being pitted against each other, right? um, like I sometimes have thoughts about other women where I'm like, where my conscious brain goes like, really, Max? Really? But the thought is quicker than the subconscious thought, can be quicker than the conscious thought. Um, and it's so overwhelming. It happens in so many areas of our lives. And the more you look into it, the more you're like, wait, that's the patriarchy too? Like, what is happening? Like, once you start looking into it as well, like the whole, how beauty is interpreted, or how medicine has been developed, or how, the fact that medical research wasn't done on women, only on men, because it's too complicated to consider
A woman.
a woman's hormonal cycle. And it's like, yeah, but no, that doesn't seem right. And like, so once you really start looking into it, it becomes really like, oh my God, this stuff is everywhere. I don't know if you've went through this, but once you really start digging into this a little bit, you get to that point where you're like, it's everywhere, and it's just completely overwhelming how much of this programming has been done, where we're like, oh no, but that's just how women are. And it's like, no, it's not. They just told us that that's what we are, that's who we are. Or
So we are actually also acting out of subconscious strategies, subconscious values, subconscious systems.
yeah, of
And the
course.
only and the only thing what I perceive from you is that we actually, even after 60, 50, 40 years of female movement, we didn't get quite, further.
Well, I think that one of the things that, and this is what I often talk about in the work that I'm doing, is there's certain, and when we talk about masculine and feminine energy, that's not a gender divide, but it's more of, they're just, they're the yin and yang energies. And our our society is so based around sort of the masculine concepts of productivity and rational thinking and logical, you know, logical thinking and those kind of things. Whereas, and and just as a society, we've decided that intuition is false, or that compassion is a weakness, or that, you know, and those are the more sort of feminine values. So I think that in an effort for women to claim their seat at the table, they decided that they had to get to this masculine table of productivity, and so they didn't bring all the stuff that makes the feminine so fucking powerful. And
But
that's just a shame.
is it a shame or is it fear? Because with most women I'm working, I perceive so much fear being themselves as women, not getting sexually harassed or whatever, or don't get the job if they don't fit to the rules of the company or the society.
No, absolutely. I think, and it's, I mean, we're constantly hearing that these aspects are bad, or we're just hysterical, or we're just, you know, oh, she must just be hormonal. Like, there's so much dismissive stuff going on around who we are as women. And if you show up in a workplace and you go like, I think we should do this, and people ask you why, and your answer is, I don't know, I just have a feeling, that's usually not, that's usually not how we make choices in business, right? Because we need to have the figures and the numbers and the data, and we need to analyze, and we need to, and I have to say that every time when I was, the times where in my business I decided to sit down and do the numbers and set the goals, and those were always my worst months until I let that go and just followed my intuition again. And of course, there are numbers and there's administration and all that stuff. And it's good to know, how your money is flowing in and out of your business and all that stuff. But it doesn't have to be the end all and be all of how you make decisions in your business.
But
I knew there was a but coming.
even when you have the figures, the data, or whatever, men and women, the end decision is always intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
But male, most of the time say, yeah, it's because of those data. No. The end decision, and it doesn't matter what it is, it's most of the time intuitive. And I can you tell stories about CEOs and their decision actually killing a whole company because of their decision, and because of a decision which is not racial, not based on data, nor facts, but on something else. And the interesting part is, as higher the position of a woman is in big companies, as more male attitude they had. And this was the biggest aha moment to say, no, that's not the right decision. And I truly feel that 2021 will begin the future of the female, of the women. I'm not talking about matriarch, by the way. I'm talking
No,
about
not at all.
using our gifts, and we have way much more gifts. And most of the time, that's why we end up as assistant, because we just take care. We love to take care for others. And actually, those gifts, in my opinion, makes the best leader ever. But
Well, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think it needs to be a balance, like, because there's nothing wrong with productivity in action. We need productivity in action,
yes,
because
of
otherwise
course.
nothing will ever get done.
Yes.
But at the same time, like, and um, I think you're absolutely right when we say like that nurturing, the collaboration, the together, like the system that we really have been functioning in for decades is power over, right? Is competition. So I have to compete with you and I need to fucking squash you because you're my competition. I need to be better than you. I need to be over you. I need to be superior to you. And really and I think that's just silly. Because I myself have experienced as well when I work together with people and help other people lift their businesses and do well in their business, and it doesn't always have to be about, oh, you need to pay me for that hour that I spoke to you about your pricing. No, I'm just glad that we spoke about your pricing and now you're charging a little bit more towards your worth, because pricing in women is also
Pretty interesting topic.
it's an interesting topic, absolutely. But I think that sort of more collaborative approach to things, like if we do things together and help each other where we can help each other, um, it moves forward so much quicker and nicer, to be honest. It feels so much nicer to be working with people who just trying to help each other out, to all get to be the best version that we can possibly be, to shine our light on the world and bring the things that we need to be bringing. It's so much more than I just want. No, here's the thing, not everybody needs to be my client, because one of the it's going to sound so weird, but I think that a lot of women will be able to relate to this. One of the thoughts that came to me this year, I don't know why it took me 40 years of my life to come up with this, but anyway, is that suddenly I was like, why am I still trying to make everybody like me? I don't like everybody else. So why do I have, why can I dislike people, but nobody can dislike me? That does not seem like a healthy way to be in the world. But, and the same is with clients. Like, not everybody has to be my client, because I don't want everybody to be my clients. There's plenty of people in this world, even people who I like as people, who I never want to work with, because no, that's not gonna go well. And so I'm really glad that there's other people who do have similar services that I
Yes.
have, that can work with the people that don't like me or that I don't like, and vice versa. And that's why, in House of Hives, when we are doing our summits or our books or something, we're always saying, like, you're promoting with each other, because everybody has people in their audience who are interested in the kind of work that we do, but don't want to specifically work with us. And so share that audience, because everybody has those people. And maybe by promoting another coach or another healer or another consultant, you actually bring someone, connect to people that otherwise would have not crossed paths, right? It's not always about, oh, I have to keep, sure, you have to nurture your audience, right? Don't just, because you also don't want to kind of overkill them with messages. But but they don't, but you can share, your audience as well with other people who they might benefit from in business, or the services that other people are offering in their businesses. So yeah, I think that that's going to be a really big shift. And I think that if anything 2020 has shown us is that super have to be in the office 40 hours a week being productive thing that we were doing before, that doesn't really seem to be working that well.
Nope.
I have met a lot of people who at the start of lockdown were very upset about having to work from home, and who are now, oh, I don't ever want to go back. It's so much more, I'm so much more productive. My private life is so much better because I actually get to spend some time with my family, and I get to take walks in the middle of the day, because nobody can actually work effectively for 8 hours a day. And the idea that we do this when we're in an office is absolute cockswallop. It's just not true.
I'm so lucky that there are so many agile different business concepts already were before COVID-19, and
Hmm.
now it became skyrocket. And I'm totally happy because there you truly can see what productivity might be different way. And there are also other examples that they cannot work at home and all the stuff. But in Austria, different hotel or different concepts came out. They're finding solutions. And
Hmm.
I truly begin this shake it, not stir it thing.
Yeah.
2020 was a good thing on one part. Of course, on the other part, it was a reframing regarding death and living. But it brought up interesting aspects in the working field and also in the living field, and we will see what 2021 makes out of it. And
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, right? Because the whole discussion about like, oh, what's the new normal going to be? And I really hope that the new normal is going to be quite different from the previous normal,
mhm,
because we were so compartmentalizing everything, and I think that, you know, we were one thing at work, and then we were one thing at home, and then we had a separate box for health, and we had a separate box for relaxation, and we had a separate box for food, and like, oh, and we had all these different and I think one of the things that people are realizing is that all these boxes are actually just one big box, and how we show up at work influences how we show up at for our family, and how we show up for our family impacts our health, and it impacts, and our food obviously impacts not just our health but also how we show up and how present we are, and all those things. And I think that if we can figure out a way to integrate the different aspects of us, and I think that the whole discussion around the feminine and the masculine is very similar to that, because it's about integrating the different aspects of ourselves, and not
embracing it, by the way, embracing it.
exactly, because it's really silly to say, well, yeah, intuition is great, but intuition is only for our personal life, or compassion is great, but it's only for
Mhm,
any charity work that we're
mhm.
doing, right? Compassion, because all these elements come into all of these areas of our lives. Nurturing comes into everywhere. I mean, when I look back at, you know, people that I've worked with, where I'm really like, do you know what, that person got something out of me that I didn't know, you know, I'm just in terms of my achievements in the work. Those were often people who also gave me space to deal with whatever was going on in my personal life, or who gave me some flexibility when it came to having days at home, or, you know, who were fine with, actually, I finished. There's only 15 minutes left to this day. Doesn't make sense to start up a new project right now. And you could just leave earlier because, you know, there's no point. He also knew that I would stay longer if I needed to finish something up. So that's always nice when that, but it's nice when there's that element of trust in each other as well.
Mhm,
And I
mhm,
think that if you run a business based on the person better be there at 9 o'clock sharp, and they better be there until 5:30 is the normal quitting time in the Netherlands. That's a little bit different for different countries as well, I suppose. But it's like, if it's about being there for the minutes that I'm paying you for, and you better be at your desk, and you better not be checking your Facebook, and you better not be this, and you better not be that. A lot of times I find that, or at least in my experience, the jobs that were like that, I didn't last very long, and I didn't do a very good job,
mhm.
because you're constantly feeling like people are not trusting you.
Yes,
And that is not a great feeling to have.
it's not healthy.
No. If you're constantly on your toes to, oh, is today the day that I'm going to get chewed out because I made a mistake?
Mhm.
Oh, because we all make mistakes. We're all human beings. It's going to happen. One day you're going to make a mistake.
That's learning. I have one company called Lean Health for Business, and I have one grader there. The human person is in the middle of everything, and that for many years only being productive and being successful and it's just sometimes pointless because you get ill, you get burnout. We have more than ever burnout, we have more than ever abuse and alcoholic drugs and everything due to the so-called pressure in the working field, and that's not healthy. And for
And I
me,
think that but that competition thing comes into that so much because we're constantly competing with everyone around us, and whether we're winning or not, if we're losing, then we're feeling bad about losing. If we're winning in the competition, in the rat race, then we're constantly thinking, oh, I better keep this winning streak going. Like, it's a lot of pressure to constantly be like 24/7 having to prove that you're the best at whatever you are.
For all listeners out there, we have a topic I think we could talk about for days. But my last question for you is, how can be the future?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question, and I think for individuals, like the question is a lot about introspection and figuring out where your strengths are, and we're so we are so programmed to look at our shortcomings rather than our strengths. So as an individual, I'd say, like, start looking at where your talents are and start building those rather than trying to fix your shortcomings. Start having your talents be your superpowers. That's a really big one for me, and I think that changes how we show up in the world, as a world, as the human race. Oh, that's a big question, isn't it? But I do think that the more space we create to for people to show up as they are, and the more we learn to listen to each other's experiences, uh, listen to understand where the other person is coming from rather than to react and reaffirm what we believe about the world. I think that creating dialogue like that, and being willing to address some of the subconscious stuff that we do. Like, we started this discussion saying, like, oh, I'm sure that I'm sometimes an accidental defender of the patriarchy. I don't want to be, but it's the system I grew up with. And I say it as well around, discussions around racism. Like, I'm not actively racist, but I am white and I grew up in a white centric society, so I'm sure that I'm sometimes accidentally racist, and please pull me up on that, because I want to learn better. If we can have that attitude in life, where we're like, just because someone is pulling you up on a subconscious belief that you hold, doesn't mean they're telling you you're a bad person. They're just inviting you to learn and to maybe change your attitude. And I think we're going to need a lot of that willingness to introspect.
And open up a field where it's okay when things happen because it's subconscious, and just also having the space that the other person is allowed to say what they perceive. I think it's a huge. Sometimes they are not allowed to be, and they become to fight and all the things. And I'm like, well, I'm here. We're here to learn.
And I think also
on eye level.
And I think as well, like, if we're pulling each other up for saying, like, wait a minute, what you're saying there is not okay, we need to also be okay. Like, we can't immediately go to anger. We can't immediately assume that someone has a bad intention by saying that, because they may not be aware of, or they may not have realized, or I think one of the things that people often kind of lose track of is that we're so used to certain jokes and things, or certain remarks that have become so socially acceptable, you know, and it's like, oh, boys will be boys. Well, that's just an example, by the way. Boys will be boys, but when you say that, what are the implications for all the boys that you know? Or like I sometimes say to my husband when he says something about like, oh, well, it's a woman driver, and I was like, so what you're saying is that I can't drive? And he's like, well, I
Ooh.
never said that. And I says, but
Oh.
you did, right? But it's not something that I pick my moments when I pull him up on this. Depends on my mood and his. But it's like when we make these sort of generalized statements about people, I think most of the time we don't realize that um, that means that we're probably saying it about our own friends and family as well.
Mm.
Um,
I can tell you a sentence I got since childhood regarding being a woman. It's like, yeah, nope, that's not okay stuff.
yeah,
I don't you think we might be at the beginning of something becoming aware that maybe our thinking and our wording, because when I listen to other people, I ask sometimes, do you actually listen to yourself what you said at the moment? And most of the time they don't.
no, I think self-awareness is definitely a skill that we're needing to teach people.
Yes.
And having said that, I also sometimes, I think sometimes also the context of where you're speaking is important, because if we're having, a discussion like this where we know that we're trying to sort of, get to certain points, and we're trying to sort of uncover some ideas and grow together, and I and sometimes then we may not find quite the right example, or we might not find, do you know what I mean? Like, and then there also needs to be space to kind of dig through that and get to what the better example would be, or get to what
Mm.
the better way of expressing yourself could be. It's
Mm.
not like, I'm not saying like, oh, well, people, we can't do any stand-up comedy or stand-up comedy anymore because jokes are not allowed. Like, I also think that sometimes political correctness goes too far, and there has to be an element of, but what is someone's intention in
Mm.
this context, in this conversation?
Mm.
Um, because if we're just jumping down each other's throats for the wording that we're using, that also shuts communication down. And I think the most important thing is that we start talking to each other, and then we can learn how to clean the language up. But I think
Mm.
first and foremost, we need to come together as people and talk about our lived experiences in a way that we feel that we are being heard, because there's all this, oh, you've had it hard, but I've also had it hard. And when I did all the trauma work for years, when I ran the platform for the people recovering from emotional abuse, like, one of the things that I used to say to people, it's no competition. This isn't the Olympics of trauma. Nobody's getting a gold medal for the most suffering had, right? Like, we all have, as individuals, we all have
Sorry.
struggle in our lives.
Mm.
It's just that the system that we're currently functioning in as a system favors some people over other people.
Mm.
And that we need to break away from.
And becoming aware of first,
Yes.
yes, and finding different ways for the changes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I really think that the first step is listening to each other and
Mm.
being willing to admit to ourselves that we're not perfect and we're not always right and we're going to say some stupid shit.
And meet each other on eye level and on humanity level. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I always saying to others. It doesn't matter which sexes we have. Just meet each other on humanity level.
Yeah.
And it could be, sometimes it's like, it could be so easy, but dot, dot, dot.
Well, I think that some of it is hard because so many people in this world think that there's a finite amount of pie, And we all want to get as large a slice of pie in
Yes.
life as we can. And I think what people need to start realizing is that there is infinite amounts of pie. So stop trying to get everybody else's pie.
Get your
Just
own. Get your own
and
pie.
just breathe. Let them have their pie. Plenty of pie still for you left. Because I think that's that's one of the things that lies at the root of so much, is that we're always trying to one up each other and get one over the other, and that we need to stop doing. Feminism isn't about hating men. I don't hate men at all. I just don't think that the patriarchy serves anyone on this earth.
And emancipation is actually like standing up for yourself. And just check for yourself what's good for you, and maybe you can inspire others that they also check in for themselves what's good for them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that if we are allowed to do the things that we're good at, and if we're allowed to focus on our talents rather than constantly trying to fix ourselves, and women more than anyone in this world are constantly told that they need to fix themselves, and it doesn't matter how much they fix, because there's always going to be something else that's wrong with them. From how we speak to how we eat to how we look to how we whatever we do. But as soon as we can start stopping that cycle of constantly trying to fix what we feel is wrong with us, and rather focus on what we feel is our strength and what we enjoy doing, then we're going to show up in that's how we build a world that's worth living in. And that also means that not only do women get to do what they want to do, whether that is run a big corporation or stay home and look after the kids. I don't care what it is that you want to do, just do it. But it also means that men maybe, have different choices that they can make about what they want to do.
Thank you very much for this very deep conversation about
I
femininity.
don't do this topic in light, superficial ways.
No. Why should we?
Exactly.
And all for the listeners out there, I give you websites and all the things to our talk. And as a special edition, actually our first special edition, I'm pretty sure 2021 will bring other special editions where we discover and talk and this topic about the future is female with other point of views, with other views, because in my deepest belief is when we inspire each other, we lift each other, and everybody of us has something where we can inspire other ones. Thank you very much.
And honestly, there's always more to learn about this and how we can show up in the world.
Yes, that's beautiful said. Thank you very much for your time, Max.
You're so welcome.
And also for all the listeners out there. And for the next time, bye.
You simply are more than you think, but feel, see, hear, and know.